Welcome. Welcome to Touching the Edge. I'm so happy to see you here today. I'm happy to see you here because I'm part of this season, this holiday season, and I want to suggest to you that this holiday season is all the way from Thanksgiving to New Year's. It's about developing presence. It's about really being part of the moment, but it's also about launching ourselves into the future. And one of those ways of doing that is to recognize that the holiday season exists as its own hologram, as a fractal. How we handle this begins to be how we're framing the coming year. And to me, one of the best ways to have a wonderful holiday season is to recognize that if we shift our relationship to our ulterior motives about the holidays, if we shift our ulterior motives about the world, it actually makes it much easier for us to influence the world in the direction that we would like it to go. When we become identified with our ulterior motive, that way that we feel like it needs to be, what ends up happening is our tension begins to rise. We have a background sense of repulsion about how it's going. We don't like the way it's going because it's not going the way that we want it to go. Very subtly, we begin to try to shape our circumstances and those people in our situation to be what we want them to be, which creates a little bit of a subtle adversarial sort of relationship. So when we shift our relationship to the ulterior motive, when you recognize that your ulterior motives are based on how you're feeling or the feelings you're experiencing and your identification with them, when you recognize that your emotions are identifications, they're signals and not identifications. When you recognize your emotions as signals, then that changes them. It changes them because then we don't have to see the world through their lens. We're able to see the world as a whole and act for the benefit of the whole, which includes how we feel. But it changes the relationship because we're not subtly trying to force the world to be what we want it to be. So this is a very powerful element. It relates all the way back into fiction and into myth. Elements, for instance, like Gollum in the Lord of the Rings. He's like, my precious. He's so into the ring that it begins to warp him. It changes him. This is what happens when we become so focused in our ulterior motive. It begins to warp us. We begin to become its servant rather than it serving us. The same thing is true with the character of Iago in Shakespeare's Othello. It becomes this counselor who really has a dark purpose that he's hiding. So let's let go of our central identification being what we want and step into that identification of just being exactly as things are. When you are in pure awareness, it doesn't mean that you won't want things to happen. It just means that you won't be trying to force things to happen. So I'm going to ring the bell. I'm going to ask you to listen carefully. Here we go. Shifting our relationship to ulterior motive is like learning to forgive. It's not something we do just once. We have to come back to it again and again and again. But when we have that clarity, it connects us to our intuition, and that's actually how we would transform the world. I bring my hands together and I bow to you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Namaste.